Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Culturally Damaged, the show that Dan and I put on every Thursday at 3:30-ish.
That doesn't do anything, by the way. There you go.
We are now live, kind of testing the music a little bit. I got a couple of new things set up over here, so sorry that we're not getting exactly the right kind of music. How's your week going, Dan?
Week so far, it would be doing okay if the Jeep was doing better. So I tried to start it up this afternoon, and the battery's gone again. So I think I need to replace the alternator now.
So you have a Jeep that you've had for several years. It's kind of a toy, right?
Several.
Yeah, how
like
long have
20
you had
years.
20 years. Oh, that's several. I think that constitutes several.
Yeah, it's an antique now.
It is an antique at 25 years old, right?
No, I think at 14 years or something. I don't know. It
How
may not
old
be a
is it?
classic car yet, but I'm kind of waiting that out.
Now, is that a street legal Jeep? Can you get that on the road?
When it runs, yes, it goes on the road. Yeah, it's all legal.
I mean, it looks like something that you would drive like
a monster truck.
Yeah, like you would run over cars in.
I've had fantasies of running over cars, especially back in the day. Those little Beetles, especially when the new Beetle came out.
So you have a fantasy of running over the Beetles?
Yes, little cars, just crushing them all, crush and crush and crush.
Did you ever go to the Monster Truck Rally when you were a kid?
I have been to monster truck rallies as an adult, as well as a kid.
Where was the last time you went to a Monster Truck Rally?
It's like 5-6 years ago.
I went to a Monster Truck Rally one time just because I wanted to see what it was like.
It's awesome.
We went to Alltel Stadium in Jacksonville, and there were 70,000 fans there, which they can only get about 50 for the football games, but there was about 75. The state of Georgia had overflowed Jacksonville, and it had a nice stench of motor oil and Old Spice. That's what I remember.
Well, it's hot too because of the car, or a lot of the different things that they have running shoot flames out and all this kind of stuff, depending on the events. And so sometimes they'll have flames shooting out.
So you can get a little high from the flames.
It's kind of like huffing paint. I'm not sure you would consider that to be high.
Well, to each his own. That's probably why they don't do it in the dome, right? I mean, that would make sense. You pretty much need an open air stadium for a.
I guess we'll have to Google
monster truck rally.
I would probably recommend. I mean, usually they don't recommend you sit in your garage with your engine running. So I think it's similar.
I do recommend it.
I think it's similar concept here. So.
Yeah. We would lose a lot of good people if that happened.
Not at the monster truck rallies.
Especially if you were there.
I will have to say
there was a Trump joke in there that I did not make.
No. But I will have to say, as much as I do enjoy them, like if you didn't feel like a member of Mensa, like you definitely feel like a member of Mensa after going to monster truck rally.
Yeah.
Well, and that's even like if you have a high school diploma, you probably feel that way. So you and I.
Oh, we double majored in high school, didn't we?
No, sir.
The one that I went to was just a complete blast. I mean, these little kids were going crazy, and they all had their different Monster Truck Rally T-shirt on for a different truck that they all liked, whether it be Gravedigger, or Bigfoot,
or perhaps Monster Mutt Dalmatian.
Ooh, is that one?
There is a Dalmatian monster truck,
and that's your favorite truck. That's your favorite.
It has a tongue and every tongue and ears.
I am shocked that you don't have spots on your Jeep.
Well,
I mean, we have some black paint. If you
there actually is a little bit, but not. It's not really spots. It just says "got spotted" or something, and it has a picture of a Dalmatian with spots in it. So there are a couple spots, and I have to admit, I had thought about adding spots, but it was a fleeting thought. It didn't get any further than the thought process.
It's not the most manliest thought you've ever had.
No. But considering your thoughts, it's actually one of the more manly thoughts.
Why? Because of my Eskimo kisses?
Yes. Yeah. No, that's actually not how you did it.
I always like to beat you to the joke about me.
Which is probably why you were under the weather early this week too. It probably had nothing to do with the Super Bowl hangover. It was probably Eskimo kisses at the Super Bowl party.
That was okay this week. That was last week. Super Bowl was 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's been a long time.
Get with it. Speaking of football, the Eagles seem to want to get even better than they are now. They are demanding at least 2 first-round picks for their MVP quarterback, Nick Foles. it's not cheap to get an NFL MVP who just ran through the playoffs like it was nothing. What do you think of that? I mean, are they going to get it?
Anything?
They're not going to get anything out of a Super Bowl MVP quarterback. They're not going to
get a first-round draft. I mean, they're not going to get 2 first rounds. There's a slight chance you can get a first round. So
a slight chance of 1 first-round pick for a Super Bowl winning MVP.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, the fact that he won the MVP doesn't really make a whole lot of difference.
It means that he performed
very well games.
In the Super Bowl.
Yes. But he still has a track record as a career, so I mean, we'll see. But what's his name? Garofalo. They got a second round for him.
Yeah. Okay. Now time out. Garofalo,
but it was a mid-season thing too. So.
Is now the highest-paid quarterback in the NFL history. He has started how many games?
5, I think.
5 games.
Maybe
Nick Foles has been through the lumps up and down his career and has hit the pinnacle of the Super Bowl. But for some reason, he's not worth as much as Garoppolo?
Well, the problem is Nick Foles has a track record that's kind of been up and down, right?
Oh, that's what I just said, yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have a whole lot of a track record.
He's never seen adversity.
It looks like the trajectory is very high on him, and so I think the problem is that you have people throwing around that P word, the potential, and I think that's obviously why Garoppolo.
Why did you feel the need to say the P word? Is that a bad word, potential?
No, but there are some other bad words that start with P.
I just think that actually having that longevity in your career and having seen the bumps and the bruises and how brutal it can be to get cut by Jeff Fisher and the Rams one year and then the next year win a Super Bowl. I mean, yeah, do you have the potential to be bad? Yeah, I think we all do. But he also showed what's harder is the potential to be great, and that's what he did. So I don't know. Maybe he'll get. Maybe they'll get what they need. But Ndamukong Suh reportedly said this week that he would play for the Eagles for free. I mean, he signed a huge contract already. He's going to be making money the rest of his life. Does he need the money? Does he want a ring?
He probably will need the money. He's a troublemaker, so he's gonna end up like Sapp or something.
He's a troublemaker.
So yeah, he's got some issues. I could see him ending up like Sapp. So he
what
probably
off
better
the
make
field
as much
troubles
money.
has Ndamukong Suh had?
I don't need to worry about off the field. On the field, he's a troublemaker.
On the field, he's a mean son of a bitch, and that's why I like him. I think he's a heck of a defensive lineman. You played on the line before, haven't you?
For like 2 minutes back in high school.
Yeah, you couldn't cut it. You weren't tough enough.
No, I'm not a nut grabber like you are when you get into the pile, man. Like Ndamukong.
I will spit in your eye, and I will
fondling.
I'll jab my middle finger in your ear. I'm one dirty SOB when it comes down to it.
After you've licked it, more like a wet willy.
I will give you a wet willy at the bottom of a pile, and it might not be your ear.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, they ain't sticking a finger in your ear under there.
Hey,
that wasn't a finger in your ear at the bottom of the
pile.
That's
our problem, though. That's like that's a Bucks problem, you know. And you know, I think I was on the opposite side of this position probably just a few months ago. I love Gerald McCoy. Gerald McCoy is a great player, but man, he doesn't have that killer instinct. He gets in there, he's fast, he creates a lot of havoc. But man, that's what I like about Ndamukong Suh. Yeah, he's kicked a couple of guys when they're down, but man, who's the last guy you'd want to mess with in the NFL? That's the last dude I'd want to mess with.
As what's his name, Ian Beckles. You need a little dog in you.
Yeah, that's what I like about it.
Unfortunately, I don't think that Gerald has any dog in him. He's not mean. You never have to worry about him getting mean and nasty, spitting on you.
No, I want him to. I want him to.
Look, that's my biggest criticism of him. And
I'm starting to agree, but it's not his fault. I mean, he's just probably was raised well, and he's just a good person. Ndamukong Suh he's just mad. He just plays like his dad left to go get some cigarettes and never came back.
Yeah, he probably had some issues. I don't think you and I could act like Ndamukong Suh. I mean, at least me. I shouldn't say anything. You know, you might be just like him. No, I shouldn't start assuming things.
I'm competitive, but I'm not a dirty player when I played. In the 25 seconds that I got in the game, I was pretty mean. And then the coach, I got kicked out of the coach.
Wait, are we talking about your football career or what happened Valentine's night?
Valentine's night. No. You know Valentine's night?
Your 25 seconds
What did you do for Valentine's? I should have asked you that.
Valentine's?
Away.
Well.
Playoffs?
Valentine's? I went to the dog park.
Yeah? Well, hey, I'm right there with you, man. I was with my folks. It's our last week in town. Went to Glory Days and had salad No, actually, I had a steak last night. I had a steak and rewarded myself for Valentine's Day. But, yeah, that was about it. So Valentine's, schmalentine's.
Well, what else also happened? I think it was yesterday. Big news on the baseball front for the Rays. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, that Coca-Cola is now going to be sold at Tropicana Field. So I know you all were expecting something else, but I can finally...
You really buried the headline, man.
Listen.
We're about 5 minutes in, and you're just now saying that.
I know. I have been going to Rays games since I was in law school, and I have been frustrated ever since because I've had to, if I wanted a soda, the only real option for me was drinking Diet Pepsi.
Oh, you poor soul. For
$9 for a freaking Diet Pepsi that you really don't like. Finally, I can enjoy a Diet Coke.
So it wasn't the choice of your generation. It
No.
was you were forced to drink it.
It was a silly choice of silly people.
Now, do they have what do you call it? The fountain drinks in there, right?
Yes, they do have fountain drinks.
Because I noticed a lot of stadiums now are going to bottles, and they charge a lot more. They don't pour, but I guess they have the commemorative cups, so they have to have the fountain drinks.
Well, I think they do the bottles and different things when they're delivering and stuff. Usually, I think when they're when the guy is with the Coke or the Pepsi here.
Yeah, they're not carrying around a fountain drink, right?
No, they used to. Back in the day.
They had the little racks, right?
Yeah,
they put them in the
like
racks.
The Dr. Pepper guy.
And they were always watered down because he'd walked up like 9 rows, but you didn't get a discount.
No.
And 7 people had touched the top of the cup.
And your straw.
Those were the good old days when people were tough. That's when
before people started having to wear bicycle helmet. Kids started having to wear bicycle helmets.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
What a bunch of wusses.
So
we handed the money to each other.
But anyway, the real news, obviously, that's actually more important to me because that'll affect me over the next 2 or 3 years. But the big news is that we have an announcement of a stadium site in Tampa now. So it appears that the Rays have finally focused in on one, and now it's time to get it done.
All right, so we're looking at an area in Ybor City between downtown, which is on the north side of the Leroy Selman. So
correct.
There isn't any water views unless you can somehow build it way up high and you can look over the expressway.
Correct. Which actually could, I think, it would be a tall. But I would suggest that people, the way they have this stadium in here, you might be able to see a little bit, but not much.
And all you're seeing really is the port. I mean, you're not really seeing the beautiful bay sunset.
Yeah, because it's actually, I was looking at some maps, and it's directly across from they call it the Ybor Channel. Mm-hmm. And so that's, I don't know if there's that much to look at. Like you said, you're not really looking at
shipbuilding companies and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what is the? And you're kind of the Rays aficionado, and you've been in this area a lot longer than me. So what is the draw to Ybor City for the Rays, as opposed to all the other sites that we've kind of seen as potential?
I think it just taps into the Orlando. It taps into Polk County. West Chase, all the other areas, even if you consider Sarasota, I mean, it doesn't take any longer to get from Sarasota to Ybor probably than it does to get to St. Pete. And so when you're going over, because you're really just going over the bridge. And
and the traffic can be bound the bridge.
Yeah, so I mean, it's location. I mean, when it's in St. Pete, what is it, half of your radius or something is in the water.
Well, yeah, definitely. So, geographically, St. Pete is not an ideal place to have the stadium, and that was overlooked back in the day. But now that we have all these other places, because you could put the stadium near the fairgrounds, say you put the stadium at Channelside, which I know was a really difficult thing to pull off, or at some of these other places would have actually accomplished the geographic problem, the radius problem. But what is it about Ybor that made it
it's a downtown.
More appealing?
I mean, it is a downtown. It's already an entertainment district, so to say. So I think there's advantages, I think, from a tax perspective, but I think it's also just kind of an historic. It was one of the first areas of Tampa, and so it has a historic feel to it. There's a lot of old buildings. There is a train. So there is a train service out there, and so again, if we ever do get any sort of rail system, in Florida that can relatively easily be kind of patched into that.
I think I have a better chance of growing wings before that happens, and just flying to the game. Dan's famous line.
It's a possibility. I think
Maybe
think having the Rays there will make it at least now you can say, now look, is it going to come from St. Pete to Tampa? I don't know, but can I start to see something happening between Tampa and Orlando, at least the first stages of something?
Well, you think it would Clearwater to Tampa would be before Tampa to Orlando, but that doesn't make much sense to me. But I did notice reading, and I could be wrong on this, but where they're building a pedestrian bridge on the Howard Franklin for pedestrians like they did on the Courtney Campbell, they are leaving some space, and it's not going to affect traffic on the Howard Franklin because it's a separate bridge, but it's going to have an area for potential future rail.
I don't have any problem building another bridge. I would prefer it just be a rail bridge. Just build it. Mm-hmm. I think these pedestrian bridges are asinine for the number of people who use. I mean, do you realize how long the Howard Franklin Bridge? I mean, like from start to finish, like from exit to whatever, it's like 7 or 8 miles.
But it's a land bridge. I mean, it's not like you're building a complete bridge that goes all the way across. You're basically dumping dirt in shallow water for most of it.
Well, it's not that. But
and then you have two actual bridges. I don't know. I use the other one, but it also might be an excuse.
Pedestrian.
I know. I do. I have used it. I have biked across it several times, but I think that I think you have a point, but I think that it's also maybe an excuse to build something for rail as well. But people like to be able to get across there and like to enjoy the water, and there's no way to enjoy the water because all the coastlines are taken up on the bay for the most part by residential and businesses. So it's tough to enjoy it. But you get a lot of those people that get out there and park on the causeway and have big family reunions and parties out there, and you see them at 3:00 in the morning as you go across the bridge, and you're thinking, there can't be anything good going on over there in the dark.
No, but to me, the cost of doing it for the number of people who are actually going to use it doesn't. Because you have to be, you essentially have to be either a long-distance runner or you have to be a cyclist, and a fairly good cyclist.
No, that's not true.
Well, if you're
I rode across.
Well, a round trip is going to be 14, 15 miles.
I am not a cyclist, but I rode across, took a break, lied on the beach for a while, and then came back.
Are you going to do it again?
It was hot. Yeah. If I can't talk about why I don't bike anymore, but if I could, I would. And I'm telling you that it is fun, and it's not that bad. You don't have to do the whole thing. You can just enjoy a portion of it. It's like saying
go bike on the trail.
It's like saying you have to walk around the entire Lake Tarpon in order to enjoy it. You can enjoy parts of it.
I got better uses for that money.
Yeah, and what?
A new stadium in Tampa.
So, are you willing to spend tax dollars on a baseball stadium?
Yes.
So, if you lived in Tampa, you would vote yes for tax-funded baseball stadium. And that is not a popular position, by the way.
No, it may not be. But, if we start to look at a lot of other things, government and taxes are used for lots of other entities or different things that are not used by everybody necessarily. And, of course, not everybody.
No.
I mean, if we look at things like, what do you have? We have Ruth Eckerd, but we have, a lot of the arts.
I believe that's privately funded, though, right? Ruth Eckerd, didn't she give the money to that?
Ruth Eckerd itself, maybe, but I'm just saying, and then we have, there's a lot of money gets put into plays and other things, and that it keeps the cost down. I'm just saying, there's lots of other things that go on that are for essentially entertainment purposes that are funded or at least partially funded by government or other tax sources. And so I don't think when you start to consider the other potential draws that having a stadium, keeping a major league team, being a major league city is a big deal. A lot of people come here. Region, yeah.
I tend to agree with you. I don't devalue the importance of having a professional sports team and keeping it and maintaining it. I think it brings a lot of attention to your city. You got to think an eventual All-Star game is going to come here for the weekend. If the Rays get good enough, we have a World Series. We start to spotlight downtown. And, you build that corridor between Ybor City and Tampa, downtown Tampa, that really has been tried and just hasn't been done. The whole train system that's there right now is basically just there for looks. It's not really a real people mover for the most part. But if you wanted to go to Channelside, which I don't know why you'd want to do that right now, if you want to go to Channelside, at least for maybe a hockey game, and then afterwards you wanted to head over to Ybor, you could take a train and go over there. You'd probably get shot somewhere in the middle in Ybor right now. That's something they've got to do something about that. It's not very safe in Ybor. I read every weekend that people are getting hurt, killed.
Well, again,
is that are we gonna help that? Is that something that's gonna be dealt with? You think?
Well, I think I've been to quite a few stadiums around the country, and they're not all in pristine neighborhoods.
No, they're not.
But the nice thing too is that most of these things are usually over with before things really start getting
before the freaks come out.
Yeah, so Ybor, it's always. I mean, it's
the
been
freaks
a lot worse.
are always out at Ybor.
Yeah. Now look, like I said, I've been here a long time. And I've been in Ybor when Ybor was really Ybor, and it was dirty. I mean, not that it's cleaned up or anything, but it was really a dangerous place, much more dangerous. There were more things happening, lots of drug problems, and they've really cleaned it up quite a bit since those days. Especially, God, I used to go to some of those music festivals and other gas, and it would be just
so it was worse than it is now, because I know it kind of got better, but now it seems like it's gotten bad again to a degree.
Yeah, more isolated stuff now, like nightclub stuff. It used to be more just stuff like spilling out over
around it.
Yeah, you'd get people in fights and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that seems like sort of the issue when I've gone down there is you really have to know where to go and where not to go. But you're right though. In other cities where they've built stadiums, they built them in areas where they've tried to use the stadium as a major anchor for gentrification. So if you take, for instance, I don't know if you're familiar with the D.C. area, but the Navy Yard in D.C. used to be just hellacious. You wouldn't go there. It was one of the many places in the D.C. area that you would certainly avoid. But when the new stadium was built over there, with the Nationals, the new National Stadium, in just a short matter of time, that area has developed. It's beautiful. There's business, restaurants. There's a metro stop. See, that's the difference. They have a train. They have a metro stop right in the Naval Yard. You get out and you walk down a corridor.
Yep, got it.
That's just and you go right into the stadium, and that used to be absolutely nothing there in that corridor. But they saw, wow, look at all this traffic that's getting off the train and going into the game, and they built stuff around it.
You end up putting these like high end apartments and all these other businesses that are, and it's in Baltimore. I saw games in Baltimore
in the warehouse district.
Yeah, and they even have like hotels that are part of the stadium. And so I'm sure that they can incorporate a lot of that kind of stuff. And
that was a new thing they do with the new Braves ballpark that they built out in the suburbs, which I don't know if that's a good idea or not. But they did have hotels attached to it as well. How come the Trop never really worked as a gentrification tool for St. Petersburg like they had hoped it to? Because there's still some really bad neighborhoods just south of the Trop.
Here's the biggest issue with the Trop was that it was obsolete before the Rays ever moved into it. And so I think ever since the Rays moved into the Trop, there's been talk about how terrible the Trop is and how much they want to leave. I mean, it's been, 10 years maybe that the Rays have been talking about wanting to leave the Trop? I mean, how and of course, 10 years ago is 2008, and that's when we had our market crash. And so I think things were moving along, and then the last 10 years, why invest money if it's uncertain whether the Rays are going to be there? Because there's still a couple of apartment complexes that were. I think they may have finally gotten. I haven't been down there in the last year or so, but there were a few apartments that hadn't been finished and all that kind of stuff, and they sat vacant for a few years. And so I think that's just it's St. Pete and that neighborhood. Honestly, like we said, that neighborhood wasn't that great. Right around the stadium, you feel fine.
It still isn't.
But
I mean, you really.
You get a few blocks away, things start looking a little sketchy.
A
block away.
It really does, and you have to be careful. If you're not from the area, of which areas to go to and which to not. But I can name 10 stadiums or arenas right now that are in sketchy neighborhoods. One of them being
land is cheaper.
Yeah, well, exactly. The land is cheaper, and where they're talking about putting the new Rays ballpark is actually an area that has government housing on it, and the problem is we have a line right now of people waiting to get government housing who are homeless, and we're going to take a lot of it out. But what's good for the majority of the people, I guess, is the question, and is it worth taking people's homes away from them, but you got to put it somewhere. And when you live in this urban type of area, it's tough to do.
And I don't think there's any plans to, it's not like people are just going to be evicted from their homes and it's going to be, sorry about your luck.
No,
so
I think that's probably is what's going to happen.
No, if they're in assisted housing, there'll be new places built and new different
You are very optimistic. I hope that's the case. But from what I've read, there is a major shortage of housing right now, and when they tear this down, it's going to make the shortage even worse. If it was as optimistic as you're saying, then we wouldn't have any homeless people. We would just build those places all over. But unfortunately, it's difficult to do, and the federal funds and state funds just aren't there anymore to build more housing like that because we're cutting a lot. Lots of big cuts proposed in the president's new plan. Which should be interesting. And it should be interesting as to whether or not the people of Tampa will vote to help fund. The numbers I've heard Bob Buckhorn throwing around is about $150 million that he might commit to for the city.
I don't think that's accurate either. That was kind of the same number that the Rays Sternberg threw around. But if they're talking if a stadium is going to
the stadium's not going to cost $150 million.
No,
the stadium
is going to cost around $600 to $800 million.
Right. It's going to. It's going to cost. It's going to cost $750 million when it's said and done. But what I'm saying is, how much is the city going to have to subsidize the stadium, and do they want to? And you see this fiasco that's happened in Miami. They're really having some second thoughts about what they did in building their stadium in Little Havana.
Well, we have to make sure that we don't end up with a similar situation where the Bucks, and so the Bucks they got a sweetheart deal when the Tampa Bay Sports Authority built Raymond James Stadium. When they did that deal, the Bucks got all of the revenue from the stadium. They get all of the parking revenue, concession revenue, and that includes events that are not Buccaneer games. And so, we used to have the Tampa Bay Mutiny, and that was one of the problems, and one of the reasons why the team failed were because there were no extra revenue streams, because the Glazers got all of the revenue essentially from Mutiny, the parking and the concessions and all that stuff. And so they got a really great deal. I don't think the Rays, I don't think the local area has a stomach for that. But, the public is going to have to probably pay for about half of the stadium. So,
that's going to have to be a referendum passed.
So they're going to have to find a way, whether it's state, local, bed taxes, rental taxes, bonds, whatever.
Well, the city of Miami, in addition to the Marlins Stadium, they also did a huge upgrade to the Hard Rock Stadium, the football stadium, where the Dolphins play, putting nearly $500 million in renovations to the old Joe Robbie Stadium, Pro Player Stadium, Land Shark Stadium, whatever you want to call it. I believe it's, what's it called now? Seminole Hard Rock Stadium now. But it's attracted a Super Bowl. And in football, I think it's a little bit different. You get a lot more people to come out per game, but in baseball, you have more games. So it'll be interesting to see what the voters think in Tampa. I've heard a lot of negativity. The people that you've talked to, have they been positive about the future of the Rays in Ybor City?
Well, I don't know. It's there's a lot. The baseball fans want it, and people who are not baseball fans are going to have a harder time. But I will say, in the area at least, there's been a pretty good history of voting for sports. And so, years ago, we did a penny for Pinellas. And the penny was supposed to be for, teachers, firemen, police, all that. And it did not pass. The next ballot initiative came through with half a cent for the Rays, or a stadium, or Tropicana, whatever it was. And then half a cent for teachers, firemen, and police, and all that. And it passed. So, and it's one of those weird things. It's kind of counterintuitive to what you were talking about, and that people would rather spend the money on these other things. But, we don't actually want to raise money to pay people more. But
I certainly don't think that the people I've talked to represent a a legitimate sample of the area. But I will say that most of the people that I've heard and the back and forth that I've heard on social media has been rather negative. And maybe it's the people that are from Pinellas County that are just kind of sour because the stadium's going to move across the ditch. But at the same time, you'd think that people like that would want to see the team stay in the area. I've heard so many people say, well, why don't we just sell the team? We're not going to do any better over there. No one's going to watch them. No one cares. No one's from here. There's no Rays fans. And I tend to disagree with that. I think that I'm more along the lines of what you're saying. I think it's going to work, and I think it's going to be more than just a honeymoon period. I think that there's going to be Rays fans who were not really Rays fans before that are going to be developed Rays fans from Tampa that are going to now start going to the games that didn't go before. Now, for us to go from Pinellas, it's going to be next to impossible during the week, but hey, that's what they've had to deal with for the last 20 years in Tampa, so I guess we can do that now for the next 20 years.
Yeah, and it's one of the kind of an exciting thing, like if you live in St. Pete, I think. I mean, granted, it's a lot further drive or a lot further to go, but the idea that you might be able to take like some sort of like water taxi or water thing from, St. Pete Beach, or not St. Pete Beach, but, the St. Pete
downtown
side of the
St. Pete, yeah.
And then, just right up the channel. And
that'd be a long ride.
It would be a little bit.
You cross the bay, then you got to go north.
Yeah. But if you think about like what a drive and traffic might take, it might take you more than an hour to get there with traffic.
True. So, and that's another thing that they do in D.C. You can get in Alexandria, and you can take the boat across the Anacostia or across the Potomac down the Anacostia and get dropped off right there at the Navy Yard, and they have an access port where you can get out and go straight into the game, and that may be something that they can do here. But the Potomac River is a lot narrower than the Tampa Bay, that's for sure.
But really,
that would be
the
a
Bay,
long
when
ride.
you think about it, the Bay is really not that huge. It's
It's about 7 miles.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying it's not. It's not huge. I mean, if you're going, I'm not. I don't know what in knots, but if you're going 10 miles an hour, I mean, it's going to take less than an hour to get from there up into the channel. And so that's what I'm saying. I mean, from a driving perspective, it's going to take you at least an hour.
It would be
drive.
an enjoyable thing.
Yeah.
It would be something that if you had like a group of 10 people and you went out and you drink some beers on the boat, and you take a little cruise, and then you go to the game. It might be a little dangerous. You'll probably see some people jumping overboard, drunk, falling overboard. But hey, what's a little bit of danger when you're having fun, right?
Yeah. So, well, real quick before we move it on here, but more baseball stuff. Pitchers and catchers have reported.
Pitchers and catchers are reporting.
And so we're almost spring training is upon us, and baseball season is back.
Oh, that's exciting.
I'm excited. I have something else to watch besides vampires at night now.
Oh man, my dad's watching the Olympics. My mom and dad, I can't watch it. It's so boring. I watched the Flying Tomato guy, Shaun White, and the Pike. That was pretty exciting. But
the anti-U.S. guy.
Why? Because the flag touched the ground. Yeah, that's funny. No, it's pretty cool that he won, but I just can't get into the Olympics. Baseball probably more so than the Olympics. I'll give you that one.
Well, I have watched a total of 30 seconds, I think, of the Olympics this year.
Yeah.
And that's probably 30 seconds too much that I've spent on the Winter Olympics.
The white people Olympics. The Olympics that doesn't require running.
And that's not even the American Olympics.
Jumping.
It's like the Norwegian Olympics or something.
The Northern Hemisphere Olympics. Let's just call it that.
So, and that's look. I mean, I grew up in Florida. I've been skiing once in my entire life. I've never participated in 90% of these. At least like you said with running. Hey, I can still run, not very fast.
I want to see this.
But I can at least run.
Let's get a camera.
Yeah.
I want to see this.
So,
hey, let me ask you a question. This is backpedaling a little bit, but I wanted to get into it before we take a break. Rays Stadium. Mm-hmm. Retractable dome, covered permanently or open? And explain.
I would prefer a retractable. If I had to have one or the other, I would take no stadium top. I would go without a top.
You would go topless.
Topless, like the Jeep.
Yeah.
Go on topless, yeah. And it's because, I worked for a minor league baseball team here in Clearwater. Every minor league park in the state of Florida is open air.
Sure.
And
they can't afford to put a dome on those places.
They do have rainouts, and they do get, but it's the reality though. The reality though is they will it'll have a roof, and so it will have some type of a roof, whether it's retractable or not. And it just because there's just nobody's going to buy a ticket to a game ahead of time.
It's so hot for part of the year, and when you're sitting down there and the sun's just beating on you, like how many Bucks games do you go to at noon?
Just at noon, or
excuse me, at 1. At 1.
I don't go to Bucks games, but I would never go to a game at 1.
Yeah, why though?
Yeah, it's too hot.
It's too hot. The sun's just beating right down on your face, and that's the one thing about Miami's new stadium is I think 95% or whatever of the crowd is covered now by shade. So you have to consider
football stadium.
I mean, people are whiny and very entitled now, but if you're going to pay $50 to $100 for a nosebleed seat, you don't want to be killed by the sun, especially in a doubleheader that's going to take place on a Sunday afternoon and you're sitting out there getting killed. Yeah, put a roof on it. The estimates I've heard that a roof would cost for the stadium is about $150 million extra for a roof. Now I don't know if that's I think that's retractable.
Yeah.
But there are some drawings on the Tampa 2020 campaign of some renderings that I think people jumped a little overboard because it shows a permanent roof on the stadium. And so a lot of the nagging that I heard on social media was that it's going to be another permanent roof. It's going to be like going into a conference convention center again. It's not going to be any fun. But I think that's a little early. They haven't even developed or haven't even come up with an architect yet. So how do they know what it's going to look like?
Nobody knows. But that's people like to just pop off.
I mean, the drawings look kind of neat of what they had, but I think that was just some dude in his basement who's unemployed engineer just making some drawings.
Friend of yours?
On his draft table.
Friend of yours?
I don't know. It was on the Tampa 2020 because I got an argument with a friend of mine. He told me, he said, no, they've already drawn up the sketches for it. And I said, no, they haven't. They just picked a location. And then he showed me a picture that was on the official Tampa 2020 campaign.
No, and to say, they're going to have parking issues and all that kind of stuff. And I heard someone saying, they haven't taken into account parking. They've taken into account. And
they're not idiots.
I think that's where the rail thing can help too. Even if you're just putting parking lots out or a little bit further away, that you can use whatever existing rail is there to get people.
Yeah, people just got to get there a little early. You got to find a place to park. That's going to be tough. And you know what? For the first 5 years, they might not have adequate parking, and it might be a pain. But if they get the stadium built and they start to gentrify the area, then I think that the parking and the transportation is something that will come.
As I've heard from other people, name a stadium that you have that's easy, that you just wisp in and wisp out of.
Yeah, there's no such thing.
Well, now you actually Tropicana on a Tuesday. Yeah. Because there's 10,000 people there.
You could park in center field.
But the reality is that, nobody wants to go to a game where there's only 10,000. So if you're going to a game that has 30,000, 40,000 in it, you are going to have a parking problem.
I predict that the attendance will jump by about 10,000 people per game this year because of Coke sales.
I will be at a couple more games. I'm not sure. Well,
hey,
I'm not sure I'll do it because of the thing, but because of the Coke. But I will enjoy myself more. And I will.
That's all that matters.
I usually get a bottle of water now. Now I'm going to be sucking down the damn Diet Coke like a Philly fan.
Oh, don't compare yourself to a Philly fan. That's the worst.
Well, they're always sucking it. So
I want to say hi to Barbie, who's out there. How you doing? She's listening. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to have a sobering discussion about something that we really don't want to talk about. I know Dan especially doesn't want to talk about it, but some really bad shit went down yesterday in Florida. It continues to happen, and we're going to talk a little bit about it when we come back and get your thoughts, and we'll be right back.
Actually, we won't be getting anybody else's thoughts besides Chris and ours, but
I'll get your thoughts.
They can chime in.
We are back. A little John Fogerty with center field in honor of baseball starting back up. On a more sobering note, once again, we are facing another issue with a nut with a gun who kills a bunch of kids. Another school shooting in the United States, which marks, I think around the 15th of the year already. I mean, some crazy number. 17 people were murdered yesterday, including teachers, coaches, students. And then we start the whole debate. This goes back up again, the cycle of Facebook debates. And then we go back to doing nothing. Then it gets quiet. Then another shooting. Then we go back to Facebook debates, and then Congress starts to posture. It seems to me part of the problem at least, is that everybody's Coke and Pepsi in this. We were talking about Coke and Pepsi earlier, but we're Coke and Pepsi in this in that half the people say it is it's a mental health problem, and the other half say that it's a gun problem. And I wish we could just maybe come together and agree that this is both. That what does it take for someone to commit a mass shooting? I mean, what does it take?
No idea.
Well, first off, it takes access to some type of devastating killing machine, some kind of a weapon, an automatic weapon preferably. That's the chosen weapon of choice.
Semi-automatic.
Semi-automatic,
yeah.
Right, the AR-15s, right? That's been the one used in the majority of these things. And I'm not saying that that's the reason why it's happened, but you do need that. Because if you go in there and you have a small gun or if you have a knife, let's face it, if someone gets stabbed at a school in Montgomery, Alabama tomorrow, we're probably not even going to hear about it.
But the reality, though, is that it doesn't take an AR-15, though. Any 9mm...
To kill 15 people?
No. A 9mm, another handgun with a few magazines, and you have 30 to 50 rounds. I mean, it doesn't take...
But why are they all using AR-15s then?
I think AR-15s, it's just... People somehow think the AR-15 is a cool gun to have. So I think it's more of a copycat issue than it is a matter of, like, using an AR-15. I mean, it does. The AR-15...
I disagree. The AR-15 is a lot easier to kill more people than it is with especially with someone with less skills to load up, to reload.
Not really.
I disagree.
AR-15 is a more difficult weapon to use than a handgun. A handgun you throw in your pocket and you can, you a lot cheaper. It's a lot easier to get. There's more of them.
Well, it's awfully strange that we're not seeing more people killed by handguns than in schools. But regardless, the issue here is the access, and I'm getting to the bigger point. But you need two things. You need access to some kind of weapon that can kill a lot of people. And don't give me this BS argument from anybody that if they had a knife, they could do the same thing with a pan or a pot or a stick or something like that. Bullshit. They can't kill as many people as they can with an AR-15, and whatever you say about pistols, I don't agree with you. But these killing machines that have no other purpose in the world other than just for shooting fun and for killing people, and this is just my opinion, and that's all it is. But two, you have to have the will to not live. You have to be completely insane, depressed, hateful. You have to have something that has eaten away at your brain and has made you mentally incapacitated in one way, shape, or form. And when you have those two things together, with the access to get the gun and the nut that we seem to be creating just out of our culture, we, unlike any other country, are now having a problem where our kids can't go to school because they're getting slaughtered on Valentine's Day. Of all times. And, we thought about taking the route where we just don't say anything about this. It's just going to happen again. It's just going to happen again. We're just so desensitized to the whole thing that if we don't talk about it, then I feel like we're doing the same thing Congress is doing, which is that, it doesn't seem like we can do anything about this. Why can't we do anything? Okay, take guns out of it. Let's just do something about mental health. There's no Second Amendment for your mental health. Those people aren't protected. So why can't we make, maybe some type of a program that can at least examine people when they buy guns to make sure that they're not. There's
no way you can examine people at the time of a purchase to see if they're a nutcase or not, or whether they're incapacitated or not. So because these people are not. And let's not confuse it. But let's not confuse like the term like incapacitated or something like with someone who's deranged. And so the reality is if somebody who has problems, it's easy for them to look good and act well for 5-10 minutes during some sort of an exam. An incapacitated person, usually within 5 minutes, you can tell they're incapacitated and they've truly lost their mind.
Okay, take it.
These people it's probably more of a derangement or mental illness as opposed to an incapacitation. So that to me, at least at the time of purchase, it's impossible to. You might catch a few.
Well, there were certainly red flags with this choker. There were red flags. He had posted online that he wanted to be a professional, some type of professional school shooter. He had posted a lot of things. He was a very troubled kid. His parents died. He was adopted by some people. He didn't go to school that day because he didn't go to school on Valentine's Day, he said.
No, he was expelled, I think. Actually.
He was expelled from one school, but he was at another school, and he was told... he told his parents that he didn't want to go to school. It was Valentine's Day, and they said, what the hell with it, whatever. And then, but this kid owned this gun. It was his gun. He had it in a lockbox, and he had the key to it, apparently. And he just unlocked it, took it to school, and just started murdering people. This is a problem. This we can do better than this. We can do better than this, and I refuse to ignore it. It's people ask me all the time, why don't you have kids, man? You're 40 years old. We all have kids. I have friends that have kids that are in college. Why don't I have kids? This is why I don't have kids, because I don't want to have a kid put into this world that would live in a world that where this is acceptable. And I don't think it's acceptable. It's not fair to kids that have to go to school now. What about their rights? We talk all the time about the Second Amendment rights, but what about the rights of those kids to go into school that have the right not to get shot in the face, not to have the right not to get killed at the age of 14, 15 years old, or the teachers that have the right to just go in and do their job and teach kids like they wanted to do. At some point we got to start thinking about these victims and what it's going to cost our freedoms possibly to protect people who are coming in these schools with guns, because it's gotten out of hand, man. It's just it's not going any better. Congress isn't doing anything. They're telling us all to hope and pray, and I've hoped and prayed all of I can, and I think I'm doing it wrong because there's nothing happening. And
that's not how prayer works.
Well, how does prayer work then?
You pray to accept what happens, not pray for things.
Okay, so I pray to accept this to happen? I don't understand.
No, you have to pray to be okay with whatever has happened in the world. You can't pray to ask God to do stuff for you. That doesn't work.
I think the whole idea of prayer is pretty stupid. I think it's a way to tell people, hey, you have control over this, we don't. And if it doesn't get better, it's not because we're not doing our jobs. It's because you guys aren't praying hard enough.
No,
that's what they say.
That's a very narrow
well, give me some scientific proof on what prayer has ever done for you or for the world.
That's not the purpose. See, you have a different view of what prayer is supposed to do. To me, you don't pray to God to win the lottery. You don't pray to God to have this. That. You don't pray to God that this. What you do is you just pray that you can move on with your life and accept what has happened in your life.
Well, here's my point.
That's about all you can
I'm done accepting. I'm done accepting dead children.
Well, don't blame prayer.
I'm not. I'm done. I'm not blaming prayer. I'm blaming the people who are saying such stupid things.
I'm not going to give up my guns, so I can tell you right now that
who told you to ever give up your guns?
I'm just telling. That's the only way you stop this. The only way you stop this is you take away all the guns. That's it. The only way.
And you talk about a narrow way of looking at things.
Oh, that's the truth.
It's not. If you just make them inaccessible to certain people.
No,
why is it so
already out
bad?
there. There's millions of guns out there.
Why are we producing guns so much?
It doesn't matter. That's my point. Even if we stop producing guns today, there are millions of guns, and this is not going to stop.
So So we shouldn't do anything.
I'm not saying, but
yes, you
there's
are.
not a whole lot we can do.
So just say it.
Yeah.
There's nothing. We can't do anything about this.
I don't know if there's nothing. There's not a lot.
What can we do about it?
I don't know.
But you say there's nothing we can do.
That's not what I said. You keep putting words in my head. There's not much we can do about it.
Well, the only thing you said
these are going to continue to happen.
The only no matter of course they're going to continue to happen because there's nothing. We're not doing anything about it.
No matter what we do.
There's different.
It's going to continue to happen.
Well, murder is always going to happen, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
But do we have murder laws?
Yes, we do.
Of course we do, because we want to deter it, and we want to say
I don't know that it stops anybody from murdering
our
anybody.
laws reflect our values, and if we sit back and say that the Second Amendment is the reason why that we're going to continue to allow open purchase of guns, and we're going to bow down to the NRA because for some reason, well, the reason is money. the people no longer have the will anymore. The people no longer have the fight in them because they've seen what happened after Sandy Hook, that even though almost 90% of the public agreed with background checks on all gun purchases, that we still could not pass a bill to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with background checks. I don't know that that's going to help a whole lot, though.
Well, I think it's a start. And
I mean, the reality
shows
is
that
90. I don't know the numbers, but probably 90% of the people who get guns already go through a background check. 95%. So it's a very small percentage of people who are not going through gun background checks right now.
But here's the thing.
This kid probably passed a background check.
Is it going to solve every problem? No, but it's at least going to show that the people that we elected to office are at least trying to do something. At least they can come to a conclusion, because our democracy right now, man, there is no such thing. They do what they're paid to do. They don't do what they're elected to do. And that's the problem in Washington. And this whole bullshit about draining the swamp, it's worse now than it's ever been. All the people who paid the most money have the highest jobs now. And it's going to be like that for a long time until we get some people in there who actually care about the people. And
it will always be like that.
Well, it's always going to be like that. We're always going to be the ones who get murdered. We're always going to be the country where we can't send our kids to school, and there's nothing we can do about it. End of show. Well, and I don't accept that, man. I don't accept that at all. I don't accept your premise on this at all about. I think we have to sit down and we have to come together as much as we can about what can be done. I know it's not easy, but something's got to be done. And
the only thing you can, I mean, here's this problem. This is just like all these other problems that we want to put on the government. We want to put on teachers. We want to put on whatever. The reality of this problem starts at home. These people, this child who had this weapon, whose parents knew about it, there's no way these parents did not know that this child was depressed or had other issues. Now, do a lot of people suffer from depression and other mental illness without other people like truly knowing the depths of it? Yes. You cannot. If you do not, if the parents don't see something like this, it's because they don't want to see it. And I think parents need to open their eyes, and that's where this starts. Because
absolutely,
you can't.
Absolutely,
the parent is the only person that's truly in a position to do something about this.
Absolutely,
like if I have a friend, or I just see somebody at school who's acting a little funny. And maybe finally people will do this, report people, but people. It's different. But I was listening to Colin Cowherd the other day, and he was just making a comment about car alarms and how everybody has to have a car alarm. But has anyone ever heard a car alarm gone off and called the police and said, "Hey, I think someone's car is getting burglared into"?
Yeah, probably.
No, they don't.
Oh, that's never happened?
No, because what they think is because I'm just saying because car alarms are always 99% of the time false. It's usually because somebody sat on their remote or somebody pushed the wrong button and the stupid car alarm's going off. So nobody calls. And I think you have the same situation with these kids or people, is that every day you tell people, "Oh, you need to report this person," and they see it, and they're like, "Well, somebody else will report it, or it's not really a problem," and nobody actually reports anything. And I think it's a community problem. This is not something that the federal government, it's not something that a state government, it's not something that can fix. And it's just like we can't fix society through government.
I don't think the government can fix this. I think it's a multifaceted problem, and that's why I'm saying that we shouldn't look at it as Coke and Pepsi. It's family, it's culture, it's government, but I do think that government has a responsibility to step in and set the tone. It's just like economic development. The government comes in and they set a climate for economic development to flourish. They have to do the same thing with violence. Our culture and our society is getting away from us right now, and it's going to a place that it shouldn't go to. And I think that at some point, and I'm not saying to ban all guns, so people calm down. Barbie, calm down. There's nobody that's trying to tell you to ban guns. All I'm saying is that there has to be some steps, at least, to put together some committees to start to sit down and talk about some things that are going on and talk about how we're going to fix them and just quit ignoring them, whether it be families, whether it be training families for ways to look for kids who have depression, red flags, because there were so many red flags in this case that we could have seen that this was going to happen.
But even this, I don't see it as a government's responsibility.
I'm not talking about the government.
to train parents to look for this. This is people have to take responsibility for themselves and their families and their communities.
They do, but sometimes we need something called education, and it's completely depleting. Why can't you educate parents on knowing certain things? Sometimes they just don't know the signs to look for.
They need to be aware.
But how do they learn? Why can't we have programs to help teach people?
I just don't think we need to have programs for everything.
Well, I don't think we need to have them for everything, but when our kids are getting slaughtered and shot in the face, I think maybe we might need to invest in it a little bit so that our kids don't get killed. If it's your kids or if it's somebody else's kids, you might feel a little bit differently. I
just think people need to take, there's certain things you shouldn't have to be taught. You should just figure it out. And this is something you should be able to figure out. If your child is not stable mentally, you don't need a PowerPoint to see that your child is having problems. And if your child is having problems, that child should not have a gun. That child should not have a weapon that is accessible. That parent should have taken away the gun, done something, whatever.
Is that parent negligible here? Are they culpable? Are they culpable?
No, I'm never going to hold a parent liable because they still put the whatever.
But you're saying it's their fault.
I think what I'm saying is that it is going to take an effort by parents and people like that to stop this. This is not going to stop, because of background checks. It's not going to stop because people do get. Can you prevent a few? There may be. Problem is we'll never know because they don't happen. So it's not like we're going to, now, if we caught somebody at the gun shop, who was going to do something, but it never happens like that. We don't know. Who
I don't understand why we have murder laws, honestly, or stop signs. People are going to run by stop signs anyway, so why don't we even have them? Well, you know how much money we can save in taking stop signs down, stoplights? We don't need government to tell us to stop. Yes, it does. It's exactly the same type of thinking. It's exactly the same type of thinking.
No, it's not.
Why is government telling us to stop and go at red lights?
They're telling us not to shoot people.
Why are they? No, there's no laws
for our safety. Yes, there is.
There's no. Okay, so
there is a law. It says you stop here.
Right? Why? Why has government got to get involved in our daily lives of stopping and going? Why can't we govern ourselves?
This is typical liberal flim-flam. You try to take one side of it and take facts and different things and try to repackage
what you're
it as
saying is that a law is not going to stop anything, right?
Correct. In this case, no. I'm not saying laws don't stop anything.
Who's flim-flamming now?
No, laws don't. Laws actually, just like a piece of paper, just like a domestic violence injunction doesn't stop a bullet.
Okay, so laws don't deter.
No. That's a different story. You see, more liberal putting.
I'm
words
asking
in
you
mouths.
to clarify.
But you said.
No, I didn't. I'm asking you. So laws don't deter.
No,
they don't.
They do deter.
Okay, so having laws and governing people in a certain way, shape, or form.
We have laws on the books about guns.
But what you're saying is certain laws aren't going to stop everything. And my point is, Dan, that
they don't stop everybody from stopping stop signs either.
Let me finish. I know it's not going to stop it, but it's a reflection of our values into what we do. I know we have a value of the Second Amendment, and I know we have the value, unlike anybody else in the world, where they don't have any of this shit happen. Unlike anywhere else in the world, we have the Second Amendment, and that's fine. Let's have it. Let's all have guns. That's fine. It was completely different at the time they wrote it, but whatever. Let's have it. It's fine. But why can't we at least work around the parameters of the Second Amendment to try to find a solution to this that might involve some laws, it might involve some parenting, it might involve a comprehensive plan that involves a lot of different things that we could try to fix this. All I'm saying is I'm concerned. I think it's a problem. And I think that we can do something about it. And saying we can't do anything about it, I think is asinine.
Well, call me asinine because there is nothing that we are going to do to stop this.
Well,
this is going to continue to happen no matter what our government does.
No matter what our government does.
The only way this stops is the people, communities. And our look, we talked about this last time. Our culture is broken.
So there's no leadership at all.
Our society is broken.
There's no leadership that can make us a better country. I'm asking you.
I don't know. I'm not talking about a better country. I don't even care about being a better country. This conversation has nothing to do.
Okay.
This conversation has nothing to do with being a better country.
Yes, it does, because we're accepting kids getting killed, and that's a bad thing. That's a bad thing.
It's called being practical.
Okay.
The reality is this is going to keep happening.
Okay, and I'm asking you a question. This is not an assertion. This is a question. Is it your opinion and probably that of others, that there's nothing that any leader can do to make this a better situation.
I don't think there's anything that can be done that's going to significantly change this by the government.
I said anybody.
A leader. We can't.
A leader.
No,
Any type of
leaders
leader.
aren't going to change this. No. Okay. Someone's leadership on this issue is not going to change it. No.
Okay. Well,
Hey, we've had plenty of leaders over the years, and we're still in the same position that we're in.
That doesn't make any sense. We've had plenty of leaders over the years. We're still in the same position.
So who's going to be this magical person that's going to come along and provide leadership?
I'm not saying that anybody has to be magical. I'm saying that we just need someone to get maybe in our communities and weed these problems out in terms. I know it's the optimist in me, and I'm always going to be the optimist. You're always going to be the pessimist in these situations.
That's bullshit.
It's not.
Listen, this is about personal responsibility.
Your attitude saying that we can't do anything about it.
No, I'm not. There's not much I don't think no matter what we do.
How is that optimistic?
I don't need to be optimistic. I'm not Pollyanna. I'm being realistic about this.
Well,
reality is this is going to happen over and over again. There's very little. The only thing we can do is take away the guns, in my opinion. And that's not going to happen.
Is it you having your gun more important than people having their lives?
I'm not going to give up my gun.
Answered my question then. All right, well, that's all I got for today.
But that's the reality of gun owners.
That's all I got for today. We are over the 1 hour mark, so hopefully we entertained a few of you with our banter back and forth. As you guys know, Dan and I are good friends. We just have a very different opinion on gun violence. And I think that at the end of the day, Dan and I are going to walk out. We're going to be friends. And we're going to work together as we always do.
Except we're going to do a Rochambeau and I go first.
Yeah, right. But, hey, we can have heated debates in this country, and that's what makes this country the best country in the world. But I'm telling you, I'm starting to second guess us when we start to accept these types of things, and that's my personal opinion. But that's all we have today. I'm sure made a lot of friends here today on the show, but I don't care. I'll talk to you soon. We're going to go out with little Billy Joel.
Peace out, people.
Peace. Go Rays.
Come out, Virginia, don't let